Right, this is something new that Bob wants to do. There's a lot of podcasts at the moment with different things, but Bob does really, there's no one better at filming the grass tracks, and I think everybody knows that. So, first of all, we're going to do an interview with legends, and there's probably no bigger legend than Reg Luckhurst.
Thank you.
Now, I know Reg first started racing Cycle Speedway, and then he went into the army, and then when he came out of the army he started up on the grass track.
That's true.
So if you can tell us how that went, Reg,
yeah,
I'm sure we'd all like to know.
Yeah. It started off back in, I said, in the 20s when my father was gold running, and he won 3 medals. He was the Royal British Legion, and he used to talk about it a lot during the wartime. He didn't have a television, and it used to inspire me to be an athlete. And unfortunately, the more I trained and that, I was never a very good athlete, but I could ride a push bike quite well. And in 1952 they started a Cycle Speedway track in Ashford, and the president was Wally Jones, and we used to buy petrol off him down Beaver Road on a little garage. And I knew him quite well, and I said, "Can I?" He said, "You come up to the Cycle Speedway," he said, "and have a ride round." I said, "Okay." Well, I did. I rode round. The following week I was riding number 2. I was in the team. And the following year I was the champion of the Cogswood Eagles, and the match race champion of the whole of Kent at the time. And I won that over what is it? Why?
Okay.
Against quite a good rider. He used to ride for that was the Millers. Henwood Millers, I think. Johnny Jordan. And then of course I had to go in the army, do my national service. And so when I came out, I had this tendency to still race. So I bought a Tiger Cub trials bike because it was the cheapest bike I could buy that do grass track racing and also trialing. It was a competition bike. And I'd only got 150 quid out of being in the army for 2 years. We was compulsory, had to save 3 9pence a week, so that we had a little bit of money when we came out. And all my money went into buying my trials Tiger Cub. And I had it sent down from Elite Motors in London, come to Ashford in a big crate, and I unboxed the crate and got this lovely beautiful motorbike, brand new. I was so proud of it. And of course I took it home and stripped it out and started grass track racing on it straight away. A chap that lived at Stoughton, named Morris Barling, he lived in the same house where Cyril Rogers was born in, and he came up to me one day. No, he came to my cousin and said, "Is that your cousin, Racy?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Tell him to come and see me, and he can earn £40 a week." So my cousin came round to me, Teddy, and he said, "Do you want to be a speedway rider?" He said, "Earn £40." I said, "Yes." He said, "Go and see Morris Barling over at Stoughton." Well, I only had a push bike on the road in those days, so I cycled to Ashford and saw a friend of mine, Smudger Smith. He was a Cycle Speedway rider, finished riding by then, and he had a Comet Vincent motorbike. I said, "Can you give me a lift over to Stoughton?" "Yes," he said. When I saw Morris Barling, he said, "Right," he said, "I'll tell Cyril Roger that you are interested, and Cyril will come and see you." I thought, that sounds strange, but Cyril Roger was a famous speedway being a world final, and I was just a little old grass track rider. And one Sunday afternoon, we were just going to sit down for lunch, and my mother said, "Oh, there's a Volkswagen come down the drive." He said, "Who would that be?" I said, "I don't know." When the door was Cyril Roger. So I come in, and he sat in my father's armchair whilst we had our lunch, and he explained if I got a speedway bike, he could teach me to ride speedway at Exeter. I said, "Okay." So I went out and tried to find a speedway bike, and there was one over at Cranbrook, belonging to a chap named Johnny, can't remember the name now. So I got Morris Barling, he was another Morris Barling. Took me over to Cranbrook and looked at this motorbike. It was an Erskine 500 Jap, 1938, long
Really?
5. I said, how much you want for it? He said, £25. He said, but you can have that one there as well, another Speedway bike, an old chip chase with a part of an engine in it, a set of leathers, a bag, steel shoes, everything you needed. So I said, well, I can't pay for it now. I said, so he said, well, you take it with you, because this Morris Barling had a 1938 ex-post office van. We put the bike inside and went home, and I said, that night, I got my father to write a cheque out for £25, and I drove over to Cranbrook and gave him the cheque for £25.
Really?
He trusted me. So first thing I did was sit the bike out and get it all as good as I could to go practicing. And then I went down to Eastbourne, had a practice, and then Cyril Rogers said, right, he said, you want to come down to Exeter with me? He said, because I'm going to run Exeter this year. That was like 1958. So I went down to Exeter with Cyril. We stayed at a place, 10 shillings a week. That's bed and breakfast. We went and practiced in the morning. He said, well, if you like to practice every morning, you can use the tractor and grade it afterwards so that the groundsman doesn't know anything about it. So I had a good practice, and all of a sudden there was women down the back straight shouting at them in there. They got their washing hanging up, and all the dust is going on and they're washing it like they're packing in. So I graded the tractor with a tractor, and that was it. So I was in the very first meeting, and unfortunately it was against Wimbledon, my old track, when I got years later I made it. And we were the race. It was I remember Sil Bryan and Jim Tebby. They were the team against me, and I made a good gate. I went too wide. They come past me. And going in the back straight, I went out in tight. I went in too tight, and I hit the curb a bit. And I hit that metal safety fence. It was quarter plate metal, and my tyres went right up to 4 inches from the top and came down. And I smacked my side down. I knocked myself out, and I woke up in the dressing room. Cyril had a broken leg at the time, and he was on the sticks. And he came in, he said, are you alright? And I looked up and I said, yeah. He said, come on, he said, in the next race. So I got up, and I had a terrible sign, all black and blue it went. And my bike was written off really, because the exhaust pipe went flat, all the footrest was smashed backwards. So I couldn't ride anymore until we got back. And then I had 2 or 3 meetings down at Exeter, and in the following year, Swindon they had not a second division, it was a national league and then a national reserve league, and they wanted me to ride a national, so I rode for the year at 1959 at Swindon in the reserve league. And at the end of the year, Johnny Hoskins opened up or reopened New Cross, and he wanted Sil Rogers to ride, because Sil was one of the riders. And Sil said to me, he said, do you like to ride? I said, yeah, I'd like to ride at New Cross. So we both rode up there for 6 meetings. And at the end of the season, Johnny said, would we like to go to South America, Caracas, to race? And Sil said, I'll go. I said, yeah, I'd like to go. So we did. We went over to Caracas, so we raced out there for 9 weeks. I got knocked out and broke 7 ribs from punching my kidney. Well, it wasn't particularly good, and Cyril broke his leg again. And it was the airport was a rough old place. It was just an old tin shed where you went and got your documents and paid and everything. And we drove up there in a taxi with him, and he got his crutches. The bloke said, there you go, that's as far as you can go. And he walked from this old shed to the plane and from home.
Really?
So I was out there for a few more weeks until I came back. And then when I got back, Cyril was living over at Sutton Valence, and I said to my mother, I said, can I borrow the car? I said, I want to go and see, because I didn't have a car in those days. I want to go and see Cyril. So I went over to see Cyril, and Phyllis was at the house, and he said, he's in hospital, Pembury Hospital. I said, all right, we go over there then. So we went over to see Cyril in hospital, and he had a big plaster cast from his toe up his leg, and a big clot right around his waist. I said, what have you done then? He said, I went shooting down at Sturry. He started shooting ducks. I said, I got a 12, I went up bang. He said, my leg went and broke it again.
Blimey.
I said, but what happened then? He said, well, when the doctor was looking, doctor said, you got a metal pin in your leg. So I know, it's a crunch and a nail. He said that it's bent though. He said, we've got to sort it out. It was stainless steel.
Really?
And so when Cyril broke his leg, it mid through between his knee and his thigh, it went like at right angles, like that in there, see? So they had sawing off, get his leg, and then they put this plaster cast on it.
Blimey.
And then about 3 weeks later, he'd come out of hospital, and he'd got a Morris 1000 pickup. And I'm doing something, I saw this Morris 1000 pickup coming on. Cyril! He come in, got 2 walking sticks, and his legs did stretch straight. I said, he said, I put me one on the clutch and one on the accelerator. So he said, I said, come indoors, have a cup of tea. He got indoors, he said, oh, he said, my leg itches. He said, I said, well, wait a minute. I said, where? He said, about there. So I got a penknife and I cut a big hole in the plaster like that and got my mother's knitting needle and that's lovely, he said. And you know, we were great friends, and then of course the following year Southampton wanted a rider. I was riding for New Cross then, so I rode for New Cross for 2 seasons, and Split Walton was my teammate, and he used to say to me, I'm going number 1, you can ride where you like. And that wasn't very nice really, but of course I was an upcoming rider. And then one night I beat him at Leicester in the second half, and got in the final, and he said, Reg, he said, take your pick of the cake, Gatesdale. So once I beat him, he was very friendly. He was a very naughty man though, because he used to do some nasty things. He did pinch some gold and took it out to...
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he got put inside of that. And then he was a gun runner. He came into the Wimbledon pits into the dressing room one night. I'm in the showers washing all that, and bang, 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 the tiles flew off the wall. And they were split with a little pistol in his hand. He said, yeah, Reg, want to buy a pistol? I said, no, I said, I've got a licence for 2.2. I said, I've got a firearm certificate. I said, Dad has that. So that was it. So in the end, New Cross packed up and Southampton opened up. So I went down to Southampton and I rode for Southampton in the first year. And there we are there, the Southampton team. We won the National League. And that is the Mayor of Southampton. We had a civic reception in his parlour and all the team. And old Charlie Knott was the promoter. And we had Les Berry-Briggs, a famous rider. And all my other friends, good old memories, nearly of them all passed away now. Apart from Cyril Roger and Barry Briggs, of course.
So when did you start riding the bikes of Dave Spain then, Reg?
Well, first of all, I rode in 57. At the end of 58, Ron Valentine had helped build me a 500 Grasstrack bike with the old chip chase frame. With an old Speedway bike. We put suspension on the back. It wasn't a particularly good bike, and it was so bad. I can remember riding at Barham one day, and I'm going down the straight. I'm laying second behind Eric Burridge, and all of a sudden my left foot went up in the air like that. I thought, what's that then? And the clutch had sheared. It knocked my foot up, and then the clutch went charging down the track behind Burridge, overtook him, and went up into the safety fence. And it wasn't a particularly good bike. And I used to help Cyril Roger in his market garden because my father was a farmer and I used to do market gardening for him. And Cyril said, I want to go over to Dave Spain's. He said, I want to do something over. I said, oh. He said, come on. I went over to see Dave. I remember him riding number 23 with his old red crash helmet. And Dave said, Cyril said to Dave, he said, why do you let Reg ride your bikes? And Dave looked at me, looking like, you remember old Dave? Oh, he said, you'd like to ride my bike? I said, cool, yes please Dave. He said, I'll tell you what I do. He said, you put your Speedway engine in one of my bikes. He said, you can ride it at Lower Halstow. I said, okay. So we went to Lower Halstow. And I won the meeting. I beat Don God, who had just become the South Eastern champion. And Don said, right, you ride full time. He said, I'll put my own engines in now. Now, that was a really good bike because it was one he used to ride. And then he tried to copy it and made his own bike frames, which I rode for 2 seasons, which were never the same. It didn't handle it as good. Always had good engines, not particularly good gearbox. Used to have the old WD Norton box with the outside linkages. Didn't change gear very well. But I rode them. I had a few wins. Alf Hagen was a champion and Don God used to beat me quite often in those days. And then I had a little bit of a fallout with with Dave over something. I can't remember exactly what it was. And I was at a meeting at Barham and Don had left riding Fred Jarvis's bike and Tony Black was riding. And I can remember Tony Black being in front of me and I dived under Tony on Dave's bike and knocked him for 6 and smashed the front wheel up of Fred's bikes. And Fred came over and said, look what you've done to my bike. I said, okay Fred, give me the wheel. I said, I'll get it built up. Old Fred Pegden over at over at Kennington used to do all my wheels. So I gave it back to him when it was all repaired. Can we see it's brand new? I said, well, of course it is. He does. He's a good wheel right. And Fred looked at me and said, would you like to ride my bikes? I said, yes Fred, I would like to ride it because they were the best bikes going. Well, I rode them for the next year. We had quite a bit of success on them. They handled well, they were fast, and I was beginning to learn to ride the 500 much better than what I could on Dave's bikes. And we won we won the first Grand Slam on it. Dave and Fred was so amazed I won the Grand Slam for the first time. There's the big cup over there, which I won it 3 years running.
You also won the South Eastern Centre Championship
yeah,
at Lower Halstow.
Yeah. That was good, that was. And I started to ride at Wimbledon. And Ronnie Green come up to me and said, look Reg, he said, you're a damn good rider. He said, but you're not good in your first 2 or 3 races. He said, you're riding Grasstrack too much, you've got to stop. So I did. And it made me ride much better on the Speedway for the next season. And then it came to 1963 and Darky Blackford, the Folkestone chairman or whatever he was at the time, rang me up and said, would I like to ride at the Nationals?
Time to look down here.
Okay, no. I said, well, I haven't got a bike. He said, I know somebody who's got a bike to sell. I said, oh yeah, who's that then? He said, Alan Angier. He said he wants 100 quid for it. I said, oh yeah. I said, I might be interested. Alan was a good rider and it was a good bike. So I went down that night, I took Gloria with me in my old pickup and went down and looked at this bike. And I said, how much you want? He said, £100. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 95 for it. Okay, he said, there's a spare rear tyre, which was a Continental one, a funny tread on it. So I didn't use that one time. I went out and I went to the meeting. I rode the bike once at down Sussex way. I can't remember the track.
Pulborough.
Yeah, I think it was a Port. Yeah, it was a Port. I won the meeting on it. And the next meeting was the National at Rose Millis. So I got to the meeting and they changed the track completely. Instead of being the long track and the light tight cord and red and long big street, They went up and down. It was completely changed. It was fair for everybody to be on the track for the first time. And when you came past the pits coming down the straight, you had this big dip. And I mean, it was a big dip. You got the other side. And in the race, I used to shut up a little bit and down and out the coast coming. It came to the final. I didn't make a good gate. Alf Hagen took the lead and Bill Bridget was laying second. And I'm chasing my hardest. And I'm just catching them up and I'll lose it to this dip and catch it. And it came to the last corner and I thought, well, there's only one thing to do here. Crash and hurt myself or win the race. And I didn't shut off. And I went through the dip and I come out the other side in front of Alf Hagen and Bill Bridger. Went round the top corner, came down, and there was a left-hand turn, and I come down so low because the footrest was a swinging footrest, it folded up, and it was knocking the stumps out on the outside of the track. That's how wide I went. I come up around the back straight, round the top turn, last turn, and I won the national championship. My dad had a pickup, and he was standing in the back of it, and my mother had bought him an ice cream on a stick. And at the end of the race, he turned around, he said, well, where's my ice cream gone? He said he'd ate the ice cream without knowing it.
Actually, Bob's got some film of that race.
Has he really? Mm. Have you really? I'd love to see that. And after the race, I was so excited. I walked up to Alfie, and Alfie was sitting down with his crash helmet. He got his face mask on, he just sat there like that. And I went up, I said, cool, wasn't that a good race, Alf? And he said to me, he looked up at me, he said, if I was Don Godden, he said, I would complain. That's all he said. I knew what he meant though, because I went wide and knocked the pegs out, but it was not the inside of the track, it was the outside of the track. And I won the meeting. And the following year was up at Aintree. On the same bike, the same engine, and I won the 1964 National Champion. There's the ACU plaques were over there now. Last year, at your meeting, when we was in the tent with all the riders and that, Alan Angie was there with Paul, his son, you see, and we're sitting down having a cup of coffee and that. And Alan turned over me and said, that was a good buy when you bought my bike, wasn't it? I said, it was, I said, because I won 2 national championships and the same engine. And I said, I've put new piston rings in and valves, but that was it. I said, nothing else. He said, I'll tell you something now, Reg. He said, it wasn't my best engine. I said, do what? I said, I won 2 nationals on your second engine. Oh dear. And then, after winning the national the first time, I copied the frame and started to sell the frame and used to call them Luckies. And we sold quite a few, which now Graham's got one of my last ones I ever made. And it does look beautiful, I must say that. It looks better than when I overrode it.
Oh, I have got another one though.
Oh, really?
I managed to find one of my old Luckhurst bikes.
Really?
Yeah. The rolling chassis, but I've got a Jap engine to put in it.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's all stripped.
Is it a chrome?
No, it's a red one.
Oh, it's a painted one.
Yeah, it's like you know, like I used to have it.
Yeah.
So,
would you like to ask me a question?
Yeah. That as you say, when you brought Alan Angier's bike and you won the nationals, you also run the Grand Slam.
That's it,
as well,
yeah.
And that was for the 3rd time.
Yeah, 3rd time running.
The second time you won the Grand Slam, you had to beat Bjorn Knuckson and Barry Briggs, and obviously Alf Hagen and Don Godden. Yes. But that must have been quite something, really, to, you know.
Yeah, it was. One of my best meetings, or my most exciting meeting, was beating Knuckson at Rhodesman, where he led me right until the last turn. And we'd left the field completely miles behind him. We was right there, it was just like riding Speedway, we were side by side. And as I went down the last straight, I just managed to get 4 inches in front of him over the line. And the organiser said, get in the back of the pickup and go around the track, lap of honour. And we went around and have a lap of honour, and all the people were waving and hooters were going. And we got back and they said, go round again. So we did another lap of honour.
I've got a picture of that.
Really? Yeah.
In the truck.
Yeah, did 2 laps of honour.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that race was talked about for years.
Still is. Still is. So what tracks did you really like in England?
Everyone.
Sleaford, obviously, where you won the Nationals.
Yeah.
And obviously Rhodes Menace, you went for that. Lower House, though.
Yeah, I used to like all the tracks.
And early days, Rinsted Court, Doddington.
Yeah, that was a lovely one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doddington, it was a funny thing, I was riding Fred's bikes there, and it was a real dusty, a really hot day, and the track, it was very bumpy. You had one line to go on it, and if you were on the inside, it was grass this high, and there was a road, just dirt, and it was rough, and then you got grass, and everybody rode down this little line, and it was so rough, and I got the lead, and I'm really going, and I got to about the 4th lap, and I thought, I can't do any more. The hips had gone. And I had to pull off the track. I stopped. I stood there for a few minutes, recovered myself. And Barry Locke won the 500 race.
Really?
And he came, what's the matter, Reg? I said, I'm done in. I can't do any more. It was so rough. And from after that, I used to wear a body belt.
And that
cured it.
Really?
You can see some. I got a big body belt. I can't remember where I got it from. It had 4 leather buckles, and it was ribbed, and it's to hold me in nicely. I rode that for many years afterwards.
Now, one of my recollections of your racing career was when you was riding Fred's bike. It was a Mates and Aces meeting over at Wallet Court Farm.
Oh yes.
And they had
the bomb hole.
The bomb hole.
Yes, the bomb hole. I know what you're going to say.
Go on then, tell me the story.
Yeah, I'm in the lead of all things, and I took a tight line, and I come out the bomb hole, I went up on one wheel, and there was a rut, and then I landed down, the wheel got in the rut, and the bike went sideways, and I fell off. And the rider come behind me, and my legs were out straight, he caught me in the muscle right there, and hit me, and I spun around like a helicopter blade, and flopped, and it done my leg right in. And the ambulance had already gone to the Ashford Hospital, so they got a board, or an old door, they laid me on a door and put me on the back of a pickup, and they took me to Ashford Hospital like that, and it was so painful, it hit the muscle right badly. And when I got home, the ambulance driver said I couldn't walk, so he virtually carried me in. And I said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to lay down. I said, I'll go to bed. And I couldn't walk. So he had to go get inside and carry me up the stairs, the ambulance driver. And it was bad for about 3-4 days until it settled down.
Yeah, they were good days. But then when you come off riding the orange bike from Alan Angier, you did build quite a nice chrome bike.
Yes.
And over at Westville, you won the Centre Championships on that.
Yeah.
And that was. I ended up with that bike.
Yes, I can remember saying it. And I made it of lighter gauge tubing, thinking it would be much better. I went from 12 gauge main diamond to 14 gauge. That's when I really learned about the diamond is so important. That first of all, you've got to have the engine in a V-shaped frame, so that when it's vibrating, both the tubes take the shock to stop the vibration, and to get the strong frames to stop it whipping. And the bikes I used to make after that were far superior than anything I ever made, even Alan's bike itself.
Yeah, they were good bikes, that's for sure. That's for sure.
It was like riding in an armchair. You had a nice, comfortable old ride and safe.
So what about the Lyddon Internationals then, Reg? Obviously, you probably finished on the rostrum more times than anybody, but the one that probably sticks out was the day you beat Ivan Major.
Yeah, yes.
On the Jap.
Yes, on the Jap. And the thing was, he was riding the Works Jawa, and Barry Briggs the following day rang up Ivan and said, how'd you get on? He said, I was second. He said, who won it? He said, Ivan said, Reg. And so, what bike was he riding? He said, he's old Jap. And Barry couldn't believe it.
So what about the meetings you done on the continent? Obviously you went to Langon and you won there.
Yeah, that was a good track. I like that one. I drank 2 bottles of red wine to win that cup over there. In the middle of the track, there was a concrete bunker left over for the wartime. And we parked our bikes near it and put all our kit in it to keep it cool. And I got a bottle of orange squash, and we drove it together in Barry's old classic. And we drank all of them in orange juice, and we'd done halfway through them, and I was thirsty. I'm looking around, there was a crate of wine. So I got a bottle out, got a screwdriver, pulled the cork out, and before I knew what I drank a whole bottle of wine. I was so thirsty. And Barry said, come on Reg, he said, you're in the race next. So I come out of the race, I felt a bit funny, and I won the race. Come in, and Barry said, my bike's not going good. He said, can you give me a hand, take the engine out? So I've taken the help, get the engine out, and I've put another engine into Barry's bike. Gee, I'm sweating. Got my arms off, out of my leather, and all tucked down. I looked over this, see this bottle of wine. I drank half a bottle of red wine again. Barry went out. He said, oh, it's much better. So I went out next race, and I'm leading, and all of a sudden I heard this funny noise. And my exhaust pipe flange had broken, and the exhaust pipe fell straight down, and of course it stopped the engine. So that choked me off a bit, and so in the end, I won the Coupe de Palo, the Cup of the Day, and Barry won the next cup for the 500 race. And we both won a crate of wine each, or carton of wine each. Well, we drove back through France to Dover, got to the docks. Going to the docks, we had the boot lid off the car, and it got 2 bikes in there, and all the leathers and the crash helmets, and the toolboxes and the leather, oil and dope, and 24 bottles of wine stuck in all between. And the excise officer said, anything to declare? Barry said no. He said, what's that one? 24 bottles of wine up on the table there. He said, you've got to pay for those. I said, no, we haven't. And my top part pulled out, we've won it. They're our prizes. And Barry said, yeah, there's mine. Oh, that's all right. And Barry had got a bottle of champagne given to him by the place where we stayed, because it was Murray Briggs' in-law place. So they had a vineyard, they used to make their own champagne. And they gave Barry a bottle. So the officer said, well, hey, I have a champagne, what about that then? Barry said, well, it was given to you. He said, well, you've got to pay for it. So Barry said, well, how much is it then? He said, you've got to pay 10 shillings to it. He said, Barry gave 10 shillings to it for a bottle of champagne. And that was one of the meetings. We always have a good time there, though.
It was good down in France, wasn't it? The other thing I noticed on the internet the other day, some guy had put a film. Obviously, it would have been a cine film at the time, but on one of the German sites, you rode at Herxheim.
Oh yes.
And there's a bit of film of you. It looks as though it was a rolling start.
No, we don't know. There was a stationary start. Yeah, there was a good track at Herxheim.
Big, 1,000 metre.
Yeah. I can remember when I first got there, and I heard this bike going in the backtrack. The chap had a big open-ended megaphone on it. It sounded like an old Banks Norton. And I went out on my bike and had 2 or 3 practices and that. Unfortunately, my gearbox wasn't particularly good at that particular time. It was playing up a bad, especially in second gear gating. And I missed the gate badly, and I got real filled on the first turn. Didn't have a particularly good meeting there that day.
No, you have to be in front, don't you?
The dirt that came off it hit you like bloody machine gun bullets.
Yeah. So, what did you used to think on the Lyddon track when it was the proper grass track?
Oh, it was stony. We used to go down, we used to wrap newspaper and tuck it down in our boots, under our leathers, up our sleeves. I used to get a towel and put it over my chest and have a double flicker on my crash helmet. And when you came back, you still had pepper holes and bruises all over you. I can remember Alf Hagen, he came down there with a plastic screen on the front of his bike. I thought, well, that's a good idea. And after practice, he'd been behind somebody, he'd come back, it looked like a saw blade, it smacked the lot right off. That wasn't a good idea after all.
Now, Bob's actually got a bit of film with you at Lyddon.
Yes.
Where you've overtaken Tony Black. And
Yes.
then it shows you going down the hill and back along, and the camera goes back and there's Tony picking himself up off the floor.
I wonder why. It used to be done.
Yeah, no, it was quite interesting,
Yeah.
that. But then, in the latter part of your career on the grass tracks, you obviously come back and with another orange bike, rode for the South Eastern Centre in the Inter Centre.
Yes.
Rochester Airport, obviously.
Yes.
I don't. Did you ever ride a Westlake on the grass track?
Never ever. No. Although I was a Westlake agent, I didn't do many grass tracks in the end. I did about 5 or 6. Normally, all for Chesham.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously, Bill.
I'll tell you now, but he used to pay me.
Well, that's right. He did.
And we used to have a match race. Simmons and myself, Malcolm Simmons and myself, we used to have a match race. And I'd say to Malcolm, I'll win the first race, you win the second race, and the third race we go for it. I said, but you've got to get my way, I said, because I'm trying to come through. And we used to put on and the crowd really loved it because it looked good.
Yeah,
it was a showmanship. It was just like the World Wrestling that you get out in America today. They're all showmanship, and it was good.
But you played quite a big part in Malcolm's early years, because when you finished with Fred Jarvis, it was you that said to Fred,
"That's right.
You really ought to take that young lad." And
yeah, well, Tony's father, Malcolm's father, Tony, was my mechanic, and he used to build Fred's bikes. When I first took over Fred's bikes, they were really good because they were Hagen's, and in the following year, Tony made new frames. I didn't realise it, but they didn't have it as good as a Hagen did a proper frame. Only years later that I realised what was going on. So when I retired from racing Fred's bikes, Fred said, "What am I going to do?" I said, Malcolm was standing there. I said, "Well, look, you got a mechanic already, his dad." I said, "Let him ride." I said, "He's a good rider." I said, "He's riding Speedway, going very good." And of course, it made Malcolm.
yeah, an interesting one was TV trophy at our house, though, with yourself.
Don't talk about that. I should never forget that. Monty Banks. Chesham went up to Monty Banks and said, "Tell Reg to make it look good." So Monty came and he said, "Reg," he said, "Chesham wants it, do you make it?" I said, "Okay, I'll make it look really good." So I missed the gate completely. I overtook every rider, come to next to the last lap, overtook Malcolm, come down the last lap, and my engine stopped. He goes, "Rrr," and I've knocked the plug off. And then I'm trying to put the plug on. I'm just a minute ago, and Malcolm went past me and just won the race.
No, good.
Yeah.
What other meetings or races stick in your mind then, Reg? I mean, I know you always used to have some big battles with Don. Well, and Alf, but mainly Don.
Well, Don had good bikes, had good engines, and he could gate. And very often he'd leave me for 4 or 5 laps. But I'd just stick to him, and I'd do one of my big corners, and I used to get past him.
Yeah, another one like that was South Eastern Centre Championships at Rhodes Minnis with Alan Angier.
Oh,
that was, I think it was 8 laps.
Yes, it was. We used to Rhodes. We used to do 12 laps.
Really?
With 16 riders. Oh, that was really something. But in the end, it was just too tiring. You couldn't do it. It was too many races. You're completely worn out. Like doing 6 weeks work in one day.
So when you finished riding for Southampton, you then went to Wimbledon,
yes.
or was it West Ham?
No, West Ham.
West Ham.
Southampton had closed, and the season was about to start, and I hadn't got a team to ride for, and West Ham had just opened, and I knew Tommy Price from years earlier. I used to go with Dave Spain to Tommy Price's to get things, because Dave used to buy stuff off Tommy. And I rang him up. I said, Tommy, I said, I could like to ride for West Ham. Okay, he said, all right, you're in the team. You'll be number 2. I said, okay. And he said, you come up for practice. So we went up to practice. And he said, yeah, you're not going too bad. And the first meeting was at Norwich. And in those days, the top riders used to be on a 10-yard handicap, and then the reserves on a 10-yard in front of those. Well, I was in the middle. And when we got to the first race, I was with Knutson. So Nutty was behind me, was funding, and I was 10 yards in front of them. And the gate, and I won the race. The first time funding had been beaten for a year, and I was the only rider to beat funding that year at Norwich.
Really?
And Tommy Price came up to me and said, God, Reggie, he said, that's textbook. He said, that's textbook stuff. They were good days, they were.
So you had a season or two at West Ham and then went on to Wimbledon?
Yeah, well, it was amalgamated. We went all into one big league. We dropped from 27 and 6 a point to £1 a point and £1 a start. All the riders got an average, and my average was too high to stay in West Ham. Sverre Hartfeld was too high to go in to stay at Wimbledon, so we swapped. I don't know, but that's Ronnie Green wanted me to ride, always wanted me to ride at Wimbledon, because I was a bit of a showman, because I was taught by a very good rider to be a showman, the Split Waterman. You know, you remember Split?
Yeah.
He'd always go up and see at the meetings. Used to get hold of Johnny Hoskins' hat, filled it up with dope, set it on and throw it up in the air. And then one day, Split was there with the whitewash brush, when they would used to do the numbers across the painting Johnny's shoes white. So I used to do bits of tricks like that, you see. Well, Wimbledon had come over to West Ham and they'd beaten us. So their team went round the track in the pickup. Lap of honour. Well, I wasn't going to have that. Got to do something. There was a bucket there in the pit gate full of water. I got hold of it, walked out to the track, and as the pickup came past, I got this. I'm going to throw it into the window. And the chap saw me. And he turned the car around quickly, and there was Ronnie Green standing up, waving. And I got this bucket. He went straight to Ronnie Green, the full bucket over it. And the following year, I rode for Ronnie Green, and he used to love it.
That's missing now from Speedway.
Yeah.
There's not the characters.
Well, I had some good training. Like Cyril taught me to ride properly. I had a gait properly, but I wasn't a particularly good gaiter, unfortunately. Barry Briggs taught me to be very careful with my money. He would say, "Do you want a cup of tea, Reg?" I said, "Yeah." So I'd go and buy a cup of tea and I'd pay for it. So I learned then to be very careful with my money.
What about the time you rode in the World Final at Wembley? That must be good memories.
Well, yes, it was. There's my body colour, which I used. And I used that on the Grasstrack for many, many seasons afterwards, number 7. And there, it was my World Final medal. Yeah, it was a lovely night. I can remember they had a tractor and a trailer. We all got on the trailer, and we drove around the track, and when each section of the crowd, there was 93,000 crowd there, and one section was all Wimbledon crowd, and when we got to that, they all cheered. The hair in the back of my neck stood up. It was wonderful. But I remember the night previous, we rode at Wolverhampton, and it was pouring hard. It was, everything got wet and leather, all red shale. It was terrible night. And I'd beaten Ollie Olsen in a race up there, and I was quite proud. And in another race, I missed a gate, and I thought, no, I daren't overtake and fall off. So I just rode Norman, and I think I got 6 points that night, and I was in the World Final the following day. So the following morning I got up to get Norman, clean my bike, and it looked shocking. And my mother was going to Ashford. I said, when you go to Woolworths, I said, will you get me a tin of silver spray? So I'll to clean my bike with and give it a spray up. So she came out, and I cleaned the bike up, and I sprayed it, everything, even the tyres got silver. And when it was out on the middle of it looked wonderful by under the lights. I got 3 points, I think. I finished 11th.
They were tough days then.
Oh, yeah.
I think Bjorn Nuxon was world champion.
Yeah, he was that in the 65, yeah.
Yeah. And he was a teammate of yours at
Oh,
Southampton.
yes.
And was that the reason why you come to ride at Rhodes Minnis?
When Darky Blackford said, can you get some Southampton riders? So that's why you had Peter Vandenberg and Björn Knudsen.
And of course they'd have all been on start money back then. But the difficult thing for me nowadays is that if you go back to the late 50s, early 60s, you had Barry Briggs, World Speedway champion, riding Kent Grasstracks,
yes.
and then Bjorn Nuxon.
Yeah.
But we don't get those type of riders. I mean, they're obviously all earning so much money in Poland.
It's ridiculous.
And then you got the Grand Prix.
Yes.
So there's not just a one-off World Speedway final. Where Ivan Major, Ollie Olsen, they all rode grass tracks.
That's right.
But none of the top Speedway boys have got grass track bikes now.
Not today, no.
Shame, really.
It is a shame.
Because it was definitely good for the sport. But yeah, so when you sort of finished from riding Speedway at Wimbledon, you was obviously tempted out of retirement by Johnny Hoskins, was it?
No.
Canterbury?
No, it was Canterbury. It was Wally Maudsley. He came over to the farm. I'd become a Westlake agent because I had the RL conversion for the Jawa made for me by Westlakes. And he said, I want you to ride at Canterbury. I said, no. I said, I'll finish riding. I said, I've got a good business going. I said, that's good. He said, I'll give you £50 a meeting, and he said, that's it. He said, don't score any points. He said, I said, right, I'll ride.
So that was just a guarantee?
Yeah, it was a guarantee. I got 50 quid to ride. And I said, all right. I said, I want my second half price on it. He said, you're a hard bargain. And then it was one night riding at Canterbury. I came off. Ledbetter had hit me, and the footrest went right in my ankle. You could see the bone, and I was like, and it was really painful. And Wally came in and said, "Come quick, Reg." He said, "You're in the rerun." He said, "He's been excluded." I slowly looked up. I said, "Oh, Wally." I said, "I'll tell you what, Wally. I'm not going to ride now." And I said, "I've retired." I said, "I've had enough." I said, "I've had 20 years of racing." I said, "I've got my business going, and I've hurt myself. I don't hurt myself anymore." Okay, Reg. And that was it. And of course, then the boys rode at Canterbury. And Jamie was in the pits in the second half. And Jamie's primary chain had broken, and I put a new chain on for him and adjusted his clutch up. And Wally came over to me, tapped me on the shoulder, he said, "Quick, Reg," he said, "you're the team manager." I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "Do what?" He said, "You're the team manager." I said, "Why?" He said, "I just sacked Morris Morley." So I became the team manager overnight at Canterbury.
But you finished at Canterbury, but that wasn't really the end of your racing, because when they built the track at Lydd, which I think you had quite a big part. Again, you was out of retirement.
Yes,
and
a few years out of retirement.
But was still really competitive. And
Well, I've got a few trophies over there to show it. I'd won the over 40 meeting, and I came second in one of the qualifying rounds against all the youngsters, and now third against all the youngsters in another qualifying round.
And how old would you have been then, Reg?
62.
Well, that wasn't too bad, was it?
No. The thing was, Martin Smith used to play pool for us, and Martin and his father had made the track at Lid, and it was all just it was chalk on top of the pebbles. And they came down to me one night and said, "Could I get them shale?" I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "Dave Pavick was just had a load up at Hackney." I said, you get in touch with him, he'll get you a load." So he rang up, they come back and said, "Reg, it's too expensive, can't afford to buy it, about £1,000 a load." I said, "Well, it's funny you say that." I said, the gangers, which are building the motorway across the marsh at the moment, I said, "Look at the window there." I said, "See the road, it's 15 feet high, and you can see it right across the marsh." I said, "They're putting it up by highlight and let it settle." And I said, "It's sand, it's come from the Channel Tunnel. They're digging it and that's where they're putting it." I said, "And the sand is very similar to shale if you water it right." I said, "Because I've been up there trialling on my trials by." I said, "I've been making gates and tested it." I said, "I'll get in touch with the bloke," I said, "and see if he can get some." So when they came in that night, because I owned a pub in those days, they was having a drink and we were playing pool. I said, Robbie's name. I said, "Rob," I said, "all that shale you're going to dig, all that, what are you going to do with it?" He said, "Well, just chuck it away." I said, "Well, could we buy it off you?" "No, we don't." He said, "You get some lorries," he said, "and we'll get it taken down to the track for you if you like." Okay. So when Martin came in that night, I said, "Well, you can have that off over there, free of charge." I said, "You get lorries." Well, Moore's had turfing lorries on the wash, and Malcolm knew them, so they got the lorries to come up and get the shale or the sand and put it on the track. So I said to the chap who's driving the lorry, I said, "Right, I'll come down with you and show you what you've got to do and let the other lorries know." So I went down with him. I said, "Oh dear, you drop a load there, then drop a load there, and put it all around the track." So I said, "It's all that easy to lay around." "Okay," they said. So I went back to the pub because I had to do with cleaning of the pipes and all the rest of the stuff you do in the pub, and open up at 12 o'clock. And that night, I thought I'd go down and see how they got on. I opened the God, then I looked at the tower, oh no, they'd put one load there, and it's a big line for 40 yards. So they had to move all of it to get the gold with the track. But they did it in the end, and that's how they made the track. It was the sand from the Channel Tunnel.
It worked well, no?
It did.
And they're still using it today.
Yes.
So yeah, no, that's all good. But what about a meeting that sticks in my mind? Bob can probably remember Rochester Airport towards the end of the year. You had won the national championship, and you turned up with a 350 Erskine. And quite wet. But you won the 350 final quite convincingly, and then decided to ride the 350 in the 500 class.
I did. And I won the heat in the 500. Unfortunately, Martin Tatum beat me using his 500 against the... It was a short stroke Jap. What he'd done, he'd used the piston of a Jap, which is 40 mil, and stroked the old flywheels. So it had a very short motor. The only thing against it was it used oil. Because it revved so much, it was using twice as much oil as a 500. You kept pouring it on it, probably was out the bottom. And although I won the 350 race and I was second in the 500, on the solo championship I thought, no, I've got to come out on my old 500, and I beat Spud again there. But that was such a lovely bike to ride. Erskine made good bikes. It was good on the certain tracks. Now, Rhodes Minnis being a bit rough, it was a bit hard to ride. And I did take it to the Sleaford meeting, or Elam meeting, and I said to Jim Warby, I said, sorry Jim, I said, I can't ride the 350, it's too rough. And I said, it shakes me to pieces. I said, well, I should ride the 500. So Tony Black, I think, was his stand-up, took my place in the 350, and I rode in the 500 and won it.
Yeah, and then I think Erskine lent that engine to Brian Maxted.
Really?
And he rode it a couple of times. But never did know what happened to it in the end.
No, I don't.
Obviously it got sold off. But I think that bike, the 500, the same as that 350, was the bike that Bjorn Knuckson used, wasn't that? The Erskine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you know it.
One little story, though, Reg, was I was invited by Brenda Jarvis to spend an evening with Fred Jarvis and his wife.
Katie.
Yeah.
Carty, rather.
Carty, yeah, because she was German, wasn't she?
Yeah, German, yeah. He brought us through the Russian zone in a wrapped up roll of lino.
Really?
She was in the Russian side, and they sort of fell in love, so he was a sergeant, and he got a roll of lino and put her inside it and took it through as just a... Yeah, it got us through. And then he got married afterwards.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I spent the evening with Fred, and he was talking about when he built the bikes for Sid Jarvis to ride, and then Sid broke his arm. And
that was it, yeah.
So then Don Godden rode them,
yeah.
And then Tony Black, and then yourself, and then obviously Malcolm rode them after you, and then finally Alan Angier rode Fred's bikes.
I made him the frames though. I made frames for Fred at the end.
That's probably why they handled them. But he said to me, he said, I've got to say, he said, my favourite rider was Reg. He said, I had quite a few, but...
we had some fun together.
Yeah.
He used to love coming to New Cross in those days, and we used to go down the Old Kent Road to a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, and it was lovely to have a bottle of Chianti and all that. Oh, wonderful days.
Yeah, he's good bloke, Fred. What about the intercenters? Now, another one that sticks in my mind, I think it was probably Stokenchurch. For some unknown reason, you didn't actually get to the final because that particular heat was like a final. Can you remember that? And only 2 riders went through.
No, I can't remember that.
Yeah.
No, I can't remember that.
I'm sure it was Stokenchurch.
I can't even remember the Stokenchurch track now. Definitely, I can't remember.
Very, very similar to Rhodes Minnis.
High Wycombe, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes, I can remember that. Yes. Yeah, I can remember riding that 2 or 3 times. I rode at High Wycombe. I can remember I was riding Fred's bikes, and I was coming down in practice, coming down the straight, and they had numbers right across the centre line. The gate positions. I thought, I'm going to hit these, I ducked down, but of course you went down the slope because it was underneath it. And I was coming out the top corner after doing that, and somebody in front of me, a stone hit my goggles, and unfortunately I had a very hard plastic coated thing on, and it splintered and went in my eye, and it was hurting so badly. I came back in and jumped off, and Ducky Back was right next to me. I said, Hold my arms like that. I said, I'm going to sit there and hold my arms behind my back. I said, I said, John down the blokes, get the thing out of my eye. I said, it's killing me. So I'm sitting like that, because I daren't let anybody touch my eyes. I go mad. So I held my arms behind me, and I got this little bit of broken plastic. It was only about 1/8 of an inch long. It felt like a blooming house brick.
Yeah, there's nothing worse, is there? No. Something in the eye. Right, moving on from there then, Reg. Have you any regrets from your racing career, whether it be Speedway or Grasstrack? You know, maybe not riding for a certain club or going to a certain meeting or riding a certain bike, or have you any regrets at all?
Well, I do regret trying to beat Barry Briggs at Newport. I beat him in the meeting. We're both on tied on 14 points. We had a run-off. And it was before the World Final, and I was silly enough to think that if I'd beaten Barry in that meeting, I could win the World Final. I went out to beat Barry and I didn't. I come down the front straight on the first lap, still trying to, and I caught an upright, which was a bit of scaffold pole, caught my leg on it there. The engine hit me there, and my leg went all funny. And when I got back the following day and I couldn't move my leg properly and all that, I went to see a Mr. Riddell down at Folkestone. He was a football trainer and a coach, and he looked at my leg and he said, all right, he said, I'll get it, because it wouldn't bend. And just after 3 days it locked itself in position. So he massaged it and got a heat treatment on it and all that, and he said, bend your leg. I said, well, that's as far as it goes. I said, no, look, that's all it got. He said, oh, all right, just sit back on the couch. I sat back on the couch like that, and he sat on my leg and he dropped his weight like that, and my leg went. What had happened, the muscle had grown to the bone, and when he sat on it, he pulled the ligament straight out of the muscle, and my leg went all floppy like that. That was finished. He had a secretary there, and I looked up the secretary and said, will you get this man a glass of water? And I looked at him and I said, you give me a glass of whiskey. He said, you can't have that. I said, no, I was just playing a bit. So they strapped me all up with a big bandage, and I drove back to bed like that, where I lived, because this is Folkestone. And I couldn't get in the car. And I called out to Gloria, and she came out. I said, can you get me a couple of brooms? And I couldn't get it. And my mother, who lived next door at the time, had come out. I said, can you give me a hand, Mum? And they lifted me at the car, and we walked over, and I sat leaning towards them, and my leg was completely numbed, horrible. So the following day, I went to see my doctor, Dr. Bailey, in Ashford. And he looked at it. Oh, Reg, he said, what have you done? And I told him. He said, well, you would have to have a manipulation under anaesthetic, a Mr. Baird, an orthopaedic surgeon from Harley Street. Booked up an appointment, got in there, and Mr. Baird looked at the leg on it and he massaged it and all that. And then he said, I'm going to put you out. He said, I'll get it off your leg, off your muscle off. Okay. And when I came to, I'm crying. And Gloria's sitting at the end, and I said, well, my leg's killing me. And Mr. Baird was only a little man. And all of a sudden he come in with his secretary, a physiotherapist, and the matron. All run round, come in the bed like that. They looked at me like, oh, and got tears coming at my eyes. He said, come on then, put your leg on the side, get down. I looked him in the face, in the eyes, I said, you must be bloody joking. No, come in. So I thought, well, if he said it, I'll put my leg on it. It felt like a ton weight. And it bent. Oh, I thought, that's better. He wanted to stand up. I stood up. When he sat down, he said, give him a cup of tea. And off they all went. Mr. Chappelle, the physiotherapy company, he said, you mustn't talk to Mr. Baird like that. He said, he's an orthopaedic. I said, well, I didn't realise what he'd done. I said, but sorry. He said, right, Neil, I want you to come up to the physiotherapy tomorrow in Ashford, and we're going to give you a course. So for the next 10 weeks, I had physiotherapy treatment on it, because I've got to get it bent. Once I got it to there, it was nearly going good. As it got further back, it got harder and harder and harder and harder. And the thing was, he said, right, first of all, my leg wouldn't straighten up like that. It wouldn't go straight like that. So he said, right, I know an old chap, an old farmer, got kicked in the leg by a horse, had a very similar injury. He said, and he held his leg in the air like that straight for 20 minutes. And that repairs the nervous system in your leg, you see. Okay. So he said, right, lay on the couch, there's a timer. He said, a minute. I said, give me a minute. He said, hold your leg up. So I lay there flat and hold my leg up. God, after a minute, I was sweating. Oh, I took my leg. I thought, how can that old chap an old farmer hold his leg in the air for 20 minutes. I can't, I'm fit as I feel, I can't hold it for a minute. I thought, I will do it. Well, after 3 or 4 weeks of practicing, I used to go in the morning about 10 o'clock and have this physiotherapy treatment and bending my leg. It wasn't enough. So I said, what else can I do to Mr. Chappelle? He said, well, got a bicycle. He said, ride it down the road, take a spanner with him, keep dropping the saddle, so you get lower and lower, so you've got to bend your leg like that. So I used to go off with the saddle right up high and slow it down until I could bend my leg. Then when I got home, I should tie my leg to the bottom of the bed, and I'd go forward and bend it until it got better, to get more movement. And then I kept practicing with my leg up straight like that to keep it straight. So in the end, after 9 weeks or 10 weeks, Mr. Chappelle said, come on, he said, let's hold your leg up. So I went up there. And he came back, he said, you're still holding? I said, yes. And he went off and he came back. He said, 20 minutes you can put it. I said, no, 21 minutes. What for? I said, I'm going to beat that old man. So I didn't do it for 21 minutes. That strengthened my leg and it made those muscles just, unfortunately, I still have to wear a strap because it's damaged in there, the ligaments, where the engine hit me.
Really?
Yeah.
All those years ago?
Without that, if I walk 100 yards, it hurts, and then I have to stop, can't walk with it. And that's 1969, that was.
So, any other regrets, Reg, from your racing? Or?
Not really.
Another bike you rode at one time was a bike from Arne Hendrickson.
Yes, it was Jim Porter.
It was Jim Porter's bike.
Yeah.
Right? You rode it at...
I rode Jim Porter's bike. I was riding Dave's bikes at the time, and I think he broke a half-time pinion, if I remember right, on Dave's bike. And Jim came over and said, "Oh, take my bike." We had big handlebars.
That's right, yeah.
And I'm doing my with these big handlebars on it.
And that famous picture where you virtually got the handlebars on the floor, I think there was a little story that you said to Dave, I can't seem to get the bike over far enough.
That's true enough, yeah. He said, you're very good around the first corner, the second corner, this pit turning not good, the rest of it. He said, what's wrong with it? Think about it. So I thought, no, I'm sitting on the bike and I'm just sitting, going around. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I said, your handlebar's hitting my leg. He goes, he said, stick your bloody leg out further then. I thought, oh, okay, I'll try that. It was a final, and I missed the gate. Spud Tatum was in the lead. And he came right round to the pit turn. And I'm just on the outside of him. And I thought, well, I'm not going to shut off. I just went in low and put my leg right out like that, until my hand was right there. It was an adverse camber track. So both the wheels are sliding down the track evenly. And I got just enough power to keep it going. And as soon as I got hit the corner of the tunnel, and I overtook Spud. And after the race, Spud came up and he said to him, B4, he said, I thought you'd fallen off. He said, I shut up and finished third.
and that picture, they actually used that in the TV Times.
Yes, it was, yes.
Which was advertised in the very first TV trophy at...
That's right, yes. That's it, yes.
Yeah, I've still got that magazine somewhere.
Yes, I've got it somewhere too.
The guy that took that picture was Don Fuller.
That's the old Don, big old boy was, yeah.
And I got friendly with him a few years back. In fact, he came and marshalled, and he said, "I've got something for you."
Oh, right.
And he gave me this old TV Times.
Yeah.
With a picture in.
With that photograph, the Camia brothers used to ride Grasstrack, and they had motorbike shops.
Yeah.
Tom Camia in Ashford, Park Road, he had that photograph over the front of his shop door all the time that was there, all the time he was there.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, he had it there for years and years and years. And unfortunately, what happened in the end, he committed suicide because of the Ashford Council making him sell the property compulsory sale because they had put a new road in. And Tom was in the war, and he was a prisoner of war for 4 years. And he come out and he started his business, and he said, I regret having to give it up, and so he committed suicide.
Blimey.
Terrible.
Yeah, sad, very sad.
It was sad. And the thing was, it was over the Christmas period, or just over the winter period, and Sarah, the Grasstrack Club, had its annual dinner and dance, and I was sitting next to Bert in the hall, and Bert turned around and said, "You heard about Tom?" I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "He's dead." I said, "What's happening?" He said, "He committed suicide." I thought, "No." And they told me the story. Why?
Now the Sarah Club, that was formed with Bob Harvey, Dave Spain, and I think Monty Banks might have been.
Monty Banks was the instigator.
And they held their first meeting in one of the cafes along the A20 at Lenham.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
And Dave Spain, being Dave Spain, had a Jaguar car. You know the story.
Yeah, I know the story.
Go on then.
Well, Dave had gone out and have a drink and a cup of tea and things like that. And Dave went out of the driveway, because it's all shingle, put his foot down, and all the stones shot out the back wheel and smashed all the cafe windows. So when Dave got home, Bob Harvey rang up and said, "He said, smashed all my windows." He said, "All right, it'll be covered by insurance."
They were the days.
I was so lucky, really, when Dave took me on as a rider. He had this lovely 3.4 Jag, and he used to take me. I used to be carting around this 3.4 Jag, go to a meeting, and Bert Strove used to take the bike to the pickup.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Bert took all the bikes. Poor old Bert, he's all passed away now.
I know. It's
sad.
It is. It is.
So what's that one in the middle, Reg?
That's a Fremling's Grand Slam,
And where was that held?
Rose Millis.
At Rose Millis.
I won it 3 years running, and I kept the cup.
So what's all these
Well,
little ones?
if you look at that, it's Cycle Speedway. The Millers against the Eagles. A Challenge Trophy. 1953.
Before I was born, Reg.
Before anybody was born.
And then you got your Coupe de Ville trophy over there, Reg, haven't you?
This was the first one I won in France. And the Coupe, here it is. Coupe needs to come on the start. Coupe de Palo, the Cup of the Day. And I beat all the best fine riders that were out there, including Barry Briggs. Unfortunately, all my cups have been in these boxes for years and years and years, because when I went to Spain in 1988 and came back 10 years ago, they've been in these boxes ever since. And I haven't had a chance to undo this lot yet. But when Jeremy saw this case yesterday, he was looking inside of it and found out it was made in Paris. I forget the name of the manufacturer now. He said it's worth £1,500. I said, "I don't be silly, it's an only old case." He said, "Yeah, it is."
That's a nice collection of trophies, Reg.
This one, I won the world qualifying round, 1967 at Wimbledon. That one that won the rounds, Wimbledon trophy there.
What's that one then, Reg, that you just picked up, or are you going to pick?
This one?
No, the silver one behind it.
I'm trying to get this. It's for me. They're one of my Speedway riders with a Wimbledon jacket on it. The Wimbledon supporter gave me that. She bought it and put a little body jacket on it. That's a Grand Slam one. This is 1965. The final Grand Slam, 65. And this one is World Qualifying Speedway Round Sheffield, 1967. I beat in a run-off Eric Blucock on that one. I used to love Sheffield. It was the only track you never shut off. You go to the full lap without shutting off on it.
And these little mementos are from they were your dad's?
These little medals here are for gold running, 1923, 24 and 25. My dad won those as an athlete, and when he used to speak about that during the wartime, and how good a running it was and all this, that and the other, we didn't have television and that, so he always talked about running. I wanted to be an athlete. And I trained and did this, that, other. Used to go to the village sports, could win village sports, but I wasn't particularly really good. It wasn't until I got onto Cycle Speedway that I became what I am today. Right, that's England versus Poland, 1968. I was capped for there. Great Britain versus Sweden, 1968. Capped for England there. Great Britain against Sweden, 1968. I was capped there. Great Britain against the Soviet Union, 1971. Hippodromo Son Pardo, Mallorca. We ran Speedway there. I trained 50 riders. We had 6 weeks of racing before Christmas. We had 2,000 crowd the first meeting. We had bikes I built in England, took out to Mallorca in an old lorry with our 2 young boys when they were 5 or 6 years old. Used Bultaco engines. We bought the engines from Senor Bolto in Barcelona for £110 each engine. I built the frames. I sold the frames to Senor Mora for £100 each. So the bikes cost £200. We raced them for 9 weeks and had this quite a good time really. And now I understand there's one of my bikes for sale in Barcelona for €8,000.
Bit of a difference.
That is my world body colour, world final 1965. I used to race number 7 on the grass track, so I used to wear it on the grass track.
Well, I'm sure everyone who knows you, Reg, will remember that jacket.
This one, when they made the track at Lydd, I won the over 40s trophy. I was 62.
That's my age, Reg.
Yes. And then these 1964 National Grass Track Champion, ACU trophies.
And how many times did you win that?
Twice.
Won it twice.
Like, the rest of them being in the team. This is that's the Solo Championship 64. That was a team event. Team event 1965. We won it as a team. And the first national championship one I won was far back as 1961. The Solo Championship team event.
Well, thanks very much for that then, Reg. I'm sure most people that can remember you and those that probably can't because they've only been going to Grasstrack and Speedway, they're going to enjoy this. And it's been a pleasure to come down, and I'm sure Bob will echo these words that it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure for me. It's brought back old memories. I would have been doing all this otherwise.